Hi homemakers, it's Denise, and it's such a beautiful morning. I thought it was the perfect time to start my fairy garden. If you want to check out that process, keep watching. I love fairy gardens and I put one out every year. I just really enjoy the whimsy that fairy gardens bring to my gardening experience. And this year, Grandma Sandy has issued her annual Fairy Garden Challenge, so this was the perfect time for me to get mine started. And one of the things I always enjoy doing while I'm working outside, particularly gardening, is to set up my Kindle and I will listen to an audio book. This time I'm listening to Jude Devereaux's A Justified Murder. I really enjoy audiobooks because I can get so much reading done while I'm working. Once I've got my soil in place and I filter out any little rocks or pebbles or any undesirable pieces in that soil, I pop in my fairy house. I always use this house in this particular container. I got it years ago in a floral arrangement from my husband, and I use it as my fairy house. This container is probably an old oil pan or something like that. I found it out in the shed, and I conscripted it for my fairy garden. This is one of those mornings where it got hot so quickly, so I thought I'd better put on a gardening hat. I like to have a nice mix of flowers and herbs in my fairy garden, and it takes me a little bit of time to figure out just what works where. I really wanted to use those little red supertunias in the garden, so I tried them in a couple of different spaces, but what I found was working the best was those red geraniums. Something else I really enjoy putting in the fairy garden is this Dusty Miller. I like the look of the color on the Dusty Miller in connection with the roof of the house. You can see where the house has just been bleached from being in the sun for so many years, and it just, I don't know, I just feel like the color of the Dusty Miller just complements the color of the house. This is English thyme, and I love to put English thyme in the fairy garden. It's an herb that I can use to cook with, and I just love the look that it gives in the garden. And here I'm putting in another Dusty Miller, one on each side of the garden. I just love the balance and the look that it gives. And then look at these sweet little twin fairies that I have. I just think they're adorable. And I moved them around trying to figure out where was the best place for them, and I finally decided to sit them on a little rock over by the door. And you saw me tuck a little tiny bird bath over by that Dusty Miller. And I can't decide what should go in that little space beside the house, and I finally decided a geranium. I just love the balance that the two geraniums gave to the whole planter. And then this fairy is always in this particular garden, so I had to move her around to see just where she needed to fit, and then it was time to water everything in. Let me take this opportunity to thank Grandma Sandy for hosting this Fairy Garden Challenge every year. If you're not familiar with Grandma Sandy, I will link her below so that you can check her out, and I will also link the playlist so that you can see what all the other creators have done. You will love how creative the people can be with their fairy gardens. And after I get everything watered in, then I have to kind of pat them down and reposition them just a little bit because the force of the water can move things around. And then once I'm done watering the fairy garden, I thought, well, why don't you give everything else a drink while you're at it? And once I get done with the hose, I always make a point to roll it back up and put it back down in the pot. And now I'm done for the day. It's been about a week since I put this fairy garden together, and I thought you might like to see how it's looking now. There's the fairy house, and there's the guardian fairy who's always overlooking this fairy garden. And here are the twins, Jill and Jordan, as they sun themselves on the rock behind a little English thyme bush. And in their garden you can see two little stepping logs that they can use to cross from one side of the yard to the other. And then right beside the English thyme is some little architectural stones just to kind of help fill in so there's safety in crossing the bridge. And you go from one side of the bridge to the other, and there are some little begonias that will have some pink flowers on them eventually. And then tucked down behind the begonia is a tiny little bird bath. And there are two little birds sitting on it. And behind the bird bath is the dusty miller. Now let's take a walk around the back of the fairy garden. There you can see where the geraniums are continuing to bloom nicely. They're thriving in this area. And this is an herb garden because there we have some chives growing, as well as some sage, which I can use both of those for cooking, and then another geranium. Coming on around, there's another dusty miller. And then tucked down low is another begonia. And we're back to the English thyme. And there's Jill and Jordan. And they do enjoy sunning themselves on the rock. Birds sometimes try to nest in their fairy house, but they have to make sure that doesn't happen. So how do you like my beautiful fairy garden? I am really pleased with the way it turned out. Not only do I have a little bit of pretty with my flowers, but I've also got some functional, practical things with my thyme, my sage, and my chives. So let me ask you this. How do you introduce a little bit of whimsy into your gardening experience? Tell me in the comment section below. And if you're interested in checking out audiobooks, particularly the Jude Devereaux murder series, I'll put a link in the description box where you can access 2 free audiobooks. Just click on the link to find out more. And be sure to check out Grandma Sandy and the playlist so that you can see all of the other beautiful fairy gardens. And just so you know, I've raised 3 children and I've managed a home for more than 45 years. So if you want to learn more about making and keeping a home, subscribe. I would love to have you as a member of the TNT community. In the meantime, this is Denise Jordan saying, you are not done yet. Click on the link in the comments section and check out my DIY, how to make a flower garden in a flower crate. I'll see you next time.